If you think video matters for the future, you are in the right place. Today on the Prime People podcast, I'm going to sit down with Melissa Schenk, one of my original inspirations for video. I actually met her at L-Star when I got into the business in 2012. She came in, did a seminar on how getting on camera mattered. And if you follow me in the Prime Nation, you know I've put out thousands of videos and literally built my business on the back of video. So now you get to see us reconnect, catch up with her, talk about what she's doing. She's worked with CNN, NBC, a lot of the big names. And, you know, a lot of people are putting out content on video, whether it be Instagram Reels or YouTube, and giving advice on something that she is literally a black belt at. So this will be a fireside chat conversation that I would have with her, regardless of if I was filming this or not. But because you're part of the Prime Nation, you get the ability to be here. If you are live, you can ask questions and you can connect with her after the episode. So the Prime people are people that you can reach out to online and I'm sure find collaborations and connections with. But I don't want to waste any more time. Melissa, how are you doing?
Oh my gosh, I feel as though you're like the poster person for video, and like you said, 2012, right?
Yep.
Like that wasn't yesterday. So I don't want to think I've aged, but I guess I have a little bit.
Well, you sleep in a time capsule because I still remember being at that first sit down with you and you came in and you really just talked about being authentically yourself, right? So before we get into the nitty gritty, the details, and I ask you the tactical questions, I don't think I even know the answer to this question. How did you get into video in the first place? Like, what's your background?
Oh my goodness. Do you know what? I was one of those kids in school that did the morning announcements. You know what I mean? Like, just in the drama club, always wanted to perform. I grew up in Stratford, so Stratford Festival, theater girl. Like, that was my background, was theater. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues were going into the theater avenue. And I kind of was like, do I want to be a starving actor or do I want to actually be in business? It was a logical thought. Like, as much as I love to perform, I thought, like, can I deal with the rejection? Can I deal with all the things that come with that? And at the end of the day, I thought, you know what? There's this business side of me that I love as well. And so why not have both ends of the spectrum, have your own business? And I've always loved creating things. So having a production company was, it came actually after going into TV broadcasting, being in radio, working in television, working as a weather anchor. I had the company now for almost 25 years. So almost, yeah. So it seems like yesterday, but it's that evolution. And it actually started because when I was in radio and things started to evolve, it was like I could only offer radio, but that's all I had to offer. Whereas there were so many other things people needed in their marketing. So I thought we've got to be able to offer more. So that's where MS Square Productions, or MS2 as people call us, came to fruition.
Amazing. And what are the top 3 things that you would tell people if they're getting into video for the first time? Like, what are 3 just killer tips that you think would help them?
Well, you know what? I think it would have changed back in 2012 versus now in 2023. And the biggest thing right now, you know, I can give you a ton of examples, but something that came through the other day, we do work with a restaurant in Stratford, and I got a message that popped through, and it was from an influencer. And I have to say, like, I hate the word influencer.
Me too.
It drives me crazy. But so an influencer wrote, "I'm in town. Do you do work with influencers? I'm in town. So would you like a free meal and you want to come and you want to do a post sort of thing?" And it's like, and I cringe at that. I don't like that, because you were talking about authenticity. And that's the one thing that should never, ever change, is being your authentic self. Because I think that people buy people they like, know, and trust, people that they, and really the big thing right now to me is, it's not so much about putting out all this crazy content. This is where the influencer part comes in, where it's like, they always want to surprise and delight. And what's the next big thing I'm going to do? Where am I going to film? What am I going to do? I've got to get to this premiere. I've got to be seen here. I've got to do that. But what is behind all of that? What do they have to stand for? And to me, that's your reputation. And if you've got a great reputation, you do a great job. That to me is hands down, it speaks volumes. And then the other stuff is, you put out content when you're on location, or you're sharing things about where you're at or what you're doing, and keeping it interesting, informing kind of your audience of, you know, what are you up to today? Or where is, you know, I call it MS Tube TV, inspiring you to be the best you can be. So where are we today? Are we in Prince Edward Island? Are we in British Columbia? Are we doing a conference? Are we doing a commercial shoot or something? But when people are like, to me, back in 1999, not as many people obviously were doing this. So it was really magical to me. And you said, like, how'd you get into this? But I always saw the magic as being when I was a kid. You're on TV and you see the weather anchor or the news anchor, and it's like, wow, I'd love to do that. And then you go and actually do it. And you know,
I hate
maybe
this. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's not so much I hate it, but the
Yeah.
magic's sort of like it's the politics, it's the everything that goes
Yeah,
behind it.
for
You're
sure.
like, oh, I'm all grown up now. It's the real world, but that should never change. Is being your authentic self, and I feel like so many people are doing and putting out content for the wrong reasons now. It's like that. Like, oh, I'm in town. Can I come and do a story on you? Well, you might have a million followers, but my philosophy is like, will your people, do your people come to the area? Are they going to dine there? Do they, the trust, to me, it's about trust. And a lot of influencers, I don't trust right now because it's for the completely wrong intentions. So
I agree. I mean, you touched on so many topics there that I'd love to loop back to. And the trust piece and the age of the influencer, in my opinion, is coming to an end. I think people are getting very smart, 100%. Because like, I mean, even if you look at what's happening on, say, YouTube and a lot of the larger platforms, the new shift that I've noticed from like high-end creators is them giving advice that, guess what? Every piece of content has the ability to go viral. So you don't need to worry about follower count. You don't even need to worry about subscribers or views. Where for the last 10 years in my industry, I would never mention any names, but I know agents that are influencers that paid for every one of their followers. You can tell in their engagement.
Exactly.
They have 200 comments, but they're all bots. And it's one of those things that the consumers are getting educated. And all of a sudden, it's what's the depth of character. And I'm going to make
it's so transparent too. And you're right. If you do a deep dive into someone's account, you can pretty much tell if they're authentic or if it's been bought.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, so like I built my accounts it took me a decade, and I gave the math to my team today. So anybody watching this, here's the math. I was literally engaging with 10 accounts and 10 people a day times 4 days a week times that was 80 people a month, about 1,000 people a year, until I got to a place where I had a base of followers. I popped off on Clubhouse and then ended up getting the followers that I have from there. They were authentic. But what I've noticed is some of my reels and my comments, I'm not getting the same engagement that like our other larger creators were. And I was stuck in this comparison trap, being like, what am I doing wrong? Like, look at the real views they're getting. Look at the amount of comments, thinking that like, are people going to think my account's fake? When in reality, when I dug into it, I was like, first of all, comparison is not something I should be doing.
But it's tough not to.
It's super hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
So what are your thoughts on the people getting stuck in the comparison trap when they're going through that kind of feeling?
Yeah, and I do it too. I do it as well. It's so funny. Even my going on 9-year-old son said, "Mom, how many followers do you have? Do you have millions of followers on YouTube?" And I kind of explained to him, and I said, "Well, my business is a little different, and YouTube has changed. We used to put our content on my channel for clients, whereas now I want the content that we put out to be on their channel so that they get the follows, they get the shares, they get that content and engagement level." So that shifted. So our views and following is not huge. It's good for me and what I want, but do you need millions of followers? Because to me, I even look at that 80-20 rule, right? Like, where does your business come from? The followers? Unless you're a YouTube creator and you earn your income solely off of entertaining people on the internet, then I don't look at that. I look at like, when you're putting content out, is it meaningful? I go back to that like, know, and trust. And the 3 things I always, for marketing with any piece of content I always put out, is I think about 3 things: your likability factor, your expertise, and your passion, your values, your expertise is really what I'm looking at. So what's the passion behind what you're doing? Do you like what you're doing? Because that's going to attract people. Your value system, what are the things that you believe in, what's important to you? Because your clients are going to mirror that. You'll find that you will attract like-minded people through your value system. And then you showcase your expertise, and that should speak for itself. So yeah, there's a time and a place for content being out there. The other part too is that I love the fact, and what I love about video is that Google indeed owns YouTube right now, so that the more you do put out there, the more searchable you are and more discoverable you are. So how can you make yourself that guy or that person or that girl or whatever in your field? Everybody's got a chance. Everybody's got a chance, but it's the ones right now that are just doing it for like, hey, I want sponsorship dollars. I want this. I want this. I want this. Then I stopped believing it. Do you even like the product?
Sure.
Like I always said, when I worked on the shopping channel, or I worked on and sold anything for a client online or on air or Shop NBC, I have to use the product myself, because if I'm not using, if I'm just selling it, like, talking the talk, it's so, you can notice it in a person. It's called micro expressionism, but you could see if somebody believes in the product or not, or uses it.
For sure.
And then I would talk about it hands down all the time. So believing in the product and actually like loving it. This goes back to, remember when it first came up for reviews online, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I would have clients and people that would say like, can you write me a review? Can you write me something? I'll just go on and write it. And it used to drive me nuts, because if I really loved it, I would do it.
Sure.
It's the same for anything. So I get that it helps online, and sometimes you ask for that, but it was always the ones that would ask for it that I would never want to give a review to.
I agree. I think that's all great advice, being authentic. And I've had opportunities to be affiliate and, do a lot. So many people call me and be like, hey, can you just, throw this in your email list? And I'm like, but that email list I built over 10 years. The second I try and sell them something, I lose their trust. Or if I released a course, I'm said to my audience, I'm never going to release a course. This is all free. If you know anybody needs an agent, sure, call me. That's how I get paid. But that's it. Like, that's the relationship. And I think you made such a good point about that authenticity really being at the top of what people are looking for this day, and that trust factor. And I think versus what the world tells people they need to do, where, oh no, you need to go viral, you need to do this trend, you need to, have the hottest car, rent a jet, or go to this place and be seen in that area to be seen as an influencer. I think there's more depth, right, to humans than that.
Have you seen some of the, you see this on, whether it be on Instagram or what have you, there was an article out that this one fellow, he actually rents out an airplane to influencers just to get their pictures taken there, right? Like, this is the kind of crazy world we live in now, that people are going to pay to go sit on an airplane that looks as though they got on it because they were an influencer. Like, I worry about their psychological impact,
Well-being.
personally, not even online, of like, why do you feel that you had to do that? And the other one of it too with influencers is like moms and parents and putting their kids in the forefront. Like, that too is challenging. And
it can be authentic or not with certain people. So I'll give you an example. Miranda Caldwell, go follow her on TikTok. I know her through the Sirhant organization. She actually had a link to London from back in the day. So we became friends. I followed her on TikTok and we met through Sirhant. Then I realized, I started watching her videos. She loves architecture. And she goes all over the place. She shoots these amazing videos, talks about the architecture, and she loves design. I see other agents that will email me and be like, hey, Justin, your beautiful $1 million listing, can I shoot a video? And I've seen this in the past where agents will go into that house and pretend that it's their listing. And like, what a contrast. And she's grown because she actually loves it, versus the other agents that I see that it has just an ickiness to it that I can't describe.
Yeah. Again, and it's like, would you trust that person with the selling of your home? Would you at what point, where do you draw the line? Where is your moral compass?
I'll answer the question that yes, I would hire Miranda. No, I wouldn't. Contact Mr. Icky agent. But I think that that's super insightful. And I think a very encouraging part of the podcast for you to explain to people that they can be themselves and they'll generate real business. Now let's talk about that. So I've got a camera in front of me. I shoot a lot of video. I don't ever watch it. So I just post it. I don't care. Somebody that is like, oh no, my hair, I don't look perfect. Like, talk to that person about how they can start pressing record.
Yes. And that is the key. That's the beauty of a cell phone, is what I say. You don't have to start off with fancy gear and fancy equipment. You can literally have your cell phone. And when you're in the heat of that moment, you want to share something with your audience. That's where you can, I always say, like, if you could, the easiest way to do this, one, is have an intro and have an extra for yourself, meaning that know how you're going to make the plane take off and how you're going to land the plane, and what's in the middle is the magic that happens, right? Sure. But if I started off and said like, hey, everybody, it's Melissa from MS Tube TV, inspiring you to be the best you can be today. That's kind of like Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Yeah.
You go back, if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, like Wine Library TV and all that stuff. But so then you start, and today, hey, look where I am. I'm this, and that. You explain to them, and then you close it off with something. At least if you're going to get lost and you don't know how to get out, and you're like, oh, you know where you're going to land that plane. But the thing is really, and anytime I ever give any kind of a workshop or material, number one, why would anybody want to listen to what I've got to say? Well, guess what? You're a sign language therapist. There's a ton of sign language stuff out there, but yours isn't. So guess where they're going to get it? They need it to hear it from you. Your clients want, you want to attract that. You've got to put yourself out there. And I would just say, just go and do it. And maybe it's not going to be great to start, but you got to start somewhere. And you have, like, when I started weather 20 some odd years, that was awful. I was awful. And then it just, you get better and get better and get better. And then you just go do it. And then it's like you now, you can do this pretty much with your eyes closed, and you have that trust and you put it out there, and some days are better than others, but it's you.
Yeah.
And I think people at the end of the day, it's also very forgiving, more forgiving than just audio.
Mm-hmm.
When someone can see your face and hear your voice and see your expression on your face, it's compelling. People are more compelled as to, if you flub or something on air, on radio, it's a little bit harder to cover because it's very noticeable, and it's just not as forgiving, I guess I'd say.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the production level, right, is just that much
yeah,
different,
yeah.
right?
But I'd say just go and do it and try, because that's where people get stuck as well. And I find that whether it be in cities, like, so from a tourism aspect, if it is a business, a retail, or whatever kind of business, oh my gosh, I should go hire an influencer. I should bring them in. What should we do? We should pay them lots of money. Well, guess what? If you put your content out there, you made a video, you could put it out there, take the money you were going to pay the influencer, maybe boost it here and there and put your reach. Like, how far of reach do you want to go to? Are you in Stratford? Are you in London? Are you in Toronto? Are you in British Columbia? Wherever that is, how far will your customers come from, or where do you want to reach? Spend a few dollars and see who sees it from there and what you get back. It'll be interesting. And then the other part of that too, part B, is I would say you probably are at a point now where you can maybe batch some of your content. So maybe you go into a studio and you're recording like maybe 4 or 5 videos at a time, because you know what you want to put out there. I wouldn't in the beginning do too much of that, in the sense, because you've got to listen to your audience.
Yeah.
It's not about you, it's about them, and you have to listen. And I say, like, listen with your eyes by reading the comments and seeing the shares and seeing what performs well and what doesn't perform well. And that's going to dictate the type of content that you should be putting out to your audience and answering questions.
I need no notes for this episode, honestly, like, because the questions just keep coming. Like, from an equipment perspective, yes, I batch my content. Yes, I come into studio, but like sometimes I come into studio and I take my iPhone and I batch everything on my iPhone because it's easier and it's faster, right? You made such a good point. I'm like, I used to set up fancy lights. Now I'm like, oh, free light outside, just go near your window and make
natural
sure
lighting
good too, right? There's so many little hacks that you expose there, and I think just not worrying about it. The second piece, man, say it again for the people in the back, asking your audience and actually listening is such a key, because I'll ask you the question. Like, you see some of my content, and I was going to ask you this anyway, like critical feedback on my opening, or like, what do you want me to see me post more of? I'd be curious to know, and literally do that with those people to find out. So you can answer the question. If you look at my content, what would you like to know more of?
Well, I think, you know what, like, I just love the fact that you have, if anybody out there, and I'm not just saying this because we're having a chat right now, has embraced this video world, it's you, and it's very authentic, and it's like you're doing all the right things where you're you, and you are genuine, and you are doing it from the goodness of your heart because you genuinely like what you're doing, and you want to transcend that information to your audience. And that's the biggest factor, is like the why behind all of this. And see, you go back, and even if you're watching TV at some point, and even a newscast, and an interviewer, so an anchor is interviewing someone, I always listen, like, the mark of a good interviewer, like yourself, is to, like, you're not off of cue cards, right? You're listening to the answers of the person that's being interviewed and ricocheting off of that kind of stuff, versus, okay, next question.
Here's the list.
Next question.
Right?
Here's my list. Next question. What do I do? And I always say that when I would teach in college, at the college level with broadcasting, it was the biggest faux pas. But I also see that in the social media world, is that people are so used and almost just wanting to hear their own questions. We do this in our daily life too. The biggest thing I ever learned when I was in sales at the very beginning was I talked way too much. I mean, I talk a lot now.
Guess what?
I spoke way too much. Now I shut up and listen.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just listen to what is being said. And at the end of the day, you can, okay, you need that. The magic happens in your head. And then at the very end, then you can say something logical and concrete, versus just hearing the sound of your own voice over and over, right?
Yeah, just waiting for your turn to speak, like not actually listening to what the person you're engaging with, the human being on the other side of the conversation. I mean, I still talk too much. I know I talk a lot, but it's something that is me, right? You said, like, living authentically yourself. You know, the other thing that I wanted to unpack that you touched on that I don't want to glaze over is that day one mentality. So sure, people can say, oh, look, it's easy for you, Justin. I still think I'm just getting started. And I know you still probably have that mentality of like, yeah, for all your accolades, you're still have this thirst for like, well, how can I do it better? And learning about YouTube and like interacting with the people that you interact with. So like how important was that day one mentality for you and your growth and where you're headed?
I think, okay, so I fundamentally believe, like in reading some of the books, you become like the people you spend the most time with, right?
Yeah.
I really do. And so I am very careful about who I spend my time with. I am very careful about how I spend my time and who gets that time, right? Not client related, just in general. But when you're looking at the people that you're spending time with, I look at my team, for example. So I'm heading towards my 50s, whereas a lot of my team is in their 30s, and they're always like, Melissa, we should be doing it like this, we should do this, we should do this. And I'm always thinking like, hey, I know what I'm doing, you know. And then it's listening to even different ways of doing things and keeping with the times, because as we grow older we might get stuck in our ways a little bit, but always kind of just being on that cusp of what's happening, and knowing what's right for you and what's not right for you, and not just going with the trends because that's a way to do things.
Yeah.
The big thing too is like I always say that when you look at what's your playground, is your playground Clubhouse, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok? What is it? Like I'm not on TikTok so much because I don't know, I'm just not there. But am I on Instagram? Am I on Facebook? I'm here. Like all these other playgrounds, do them really well instead of doing everything kind of half-assed, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I love that.
yeah.
Actually, I just went over my content calendar with my team this morning, and I hate saying that because it's the same as like my brand or my influencer. But I was
it's
like,
important.
yeah, when I talk to them about it, I'm like, okay, I know that Instagram is really important for me and YouTube. They're my two like pillars, right?
Yeah.
But when I go to YouTube, there's like Justin and then there's Prime. The real estate people are like the real estate people, buyers, sellers, investors, builders, farmers, all that jazz. My channel is this. It's people, entrepreneurs, business owners, people that love marketing and business, basically. So when I started thinking about how we show up on those places, I'm like, you know what? Yes, I do stuff on LinkedIn and everywhere else in all those places, but why don't we look at the pillars and start really being thoughtful about not just repurposing content everywhere so that Melissa sees the same thing on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Pinterest that she sees on YouTube and Instagram, because she's going to unfollow me on those other platforms. What are your thoughts around when you create content for different types of platforms and repurposing? Because I know some people are like, put it everywhere, it doesn't really matter. I know others are like, curate it. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yes. Okay. So it depends on the type of business you are and how much time you have. For example, you have a team of people that can execute this for you.
Sure.
If I am a small business owner and I am an entrepreneur and I have limited time, I would say start by putting your content out everywhere, because in the beginning, you don't know what playground's right for you. So you're going to take that content. If I'm even, I've created a video, and even if I've paid for it or I haven't paid for it, I want to repurpose it to the best of my ability. So I would put that out there in various capacities. But then if I'm in a category such as yourself, looking at instead of repurposing that content, specifying and going a little deeper in an area. Let's say on Instagram, you're going to share your top tips for this, and this. And it's a reason to tune in there versus to tune in somewhere else. You could be teasing those on other channels, but then executing it on that particular, whether it's Instagram or if it's on YouTube. So you're kind of teasing it, promoting it there. You want to know where you're going to drive your attention. So the other thing too is like YouTube's really big for you. I would be driving those other channels, like those other tools, we'll call them Instagram, Facebook and such, to YouTube, because Google owns them. So when you are in your search rankings, think of all of those as opportunities. So LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all these things, they're all part of something larger than yourself, larger than, like, even if your website had 50 pages, like Facebook has billions upon billions, right? You're one in a billion on there. You might have multiple pages, but it's still searchable. But the most searchable is YouTube. So hands down, go where the video is. Like it's interesting when Facebook and YouTube were really going at each other, because you can see when you used to just share your YouTube video on on Facebook.
Yeah.
But then now you can see the difference. It's smaller. It's just like you've got to, even going back for a second too, I personally don't even like using the services where it's like post and then it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I find that you can't do a deep dive properly. I like to be on that platform researching. It takes more time,
Yeah.
but I like checking and seeing, and and people go like, oh my gosh, that takes forever to do. But that's a personal preference.
But I do think that the depth of relationship you build through being hands-on is
Yeah.
inherently big. Going back to, we were talking about the death of the influencer culture. Like, I know agents that have 50,000 followers. I've got 14, which is still fairly significant, but like not in comparison. But I have more signs on the road because my audience being smaller is more dialed in. I'd rather have 100 people that are dialed in than a million that could care less on who I am.
Exactly, right? Because it's the million, the ones that are the influencers that are going out like, wow, look what I've done. It's just, at the end of the day, do you need that many people for the results that you want to obtain? Like, it's the why. You got to go back to your why are you doing what you're doing? And yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather cater to that smaller niche audience and have the right people call me to work with them and have those long-term relationships. And that's what I'm all about, is like, we as a marketing agency, we don't usually do like one-off, well, I mean, sure, once in a while one-off projects, but most of our clients are like very long-term clients, and it's far reaching. So it's not, this isn't a sprint. We're in it for like the long haul. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you got to put the effort in and keep going and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And the other thing too, to mention for people that are new to this, when you're starting to upload your content, you're not going to see results right away. Like, even when you put a video up on YouTube, it seriously takes like a solid 2 to 3 months to churn. Think of all the Google bots where it has to like rejig itself and then put your content as part of that. So when people say like, oh, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, I said, you got to get it out there because you're behind the times. You got to catch up because people have got their stuff out there. You've got to get your content in there.
Yeah, the evergreen stuff. There's a video I did in 2015, terribly shot. I flub my words. It's not a good video, but I get more leads from that for investors than almost anything on my channel. And it's evergreen, right? It's fascinating.
Oh, there are some crazy things. So this is really awful. I shouldn't even tell you this. So years and years and years ago, when I first started, there was a company called Expert Village. And if you were an expert, you could make 15 videos in the series. Oh my God, I think I have about 20 of them in there. There's one, I have a sister with special needs, so I knew sign language. So I was teaching sign language. I was teaching this. They have over millions of views. And I look and I go, oh my gosh, this was in my kitchen. This is awful. I shot them when I would come home from CTV late at night. Like, it just, how to make hot chocolate. They got this on the list. I can do that. Sure. Why not? And you're looking at, and so then they got smart. They took that content. We didn't have any right to that content. They then sold it to YouTube and made millions off of our content.
Wow. That's wild. Roger Wakefield's actually a plumber who kills it on YouTube. I connected with him through Kim Walsh Phillips and Christina Smallhorn. He said something once that stood out to me. He's like, when you go to like fix the oil on your 22 Camry, and you go on YouTube and there's 2 videos. One is like highly produced, great lighting, great filmography, but you can't hear what the guy's saying or the advice is terrible. Or you go to like a grainy video of some guy who's an amazing mechanic that tells you step-by-step which video you're going to watch. And I think that's the lesson is, people are so worried about overproduction or being seen as an expert rather than just being an expert. That I think that's the differentiator of what the next age that we're going into. I call it the age of the craftsman, right? And I think that's
Love it. And isn't it amazing how when you don't know how to do something, I go to YouTube and I look it up.
Always.
How to this. So the how-to videos. And so for someone starting off new, if you have something that you are amazing at, and you can offer and impart that kind of advice, those are the best videos because you're the expert. And go back to the passion, values, expertise. Put those 3 things in your toolbox. And if you're making a video, focus on one of those 3 or all of those 3. And that's the magic sauce. I'm telling you right there.
Yeah, for years, I was like filming training videos and building SOPs for my team on like, this is how you use our CRM. But then I realized I'm like, no, go to Google, type in your question. And then if it still doesn't answer it, then call me. And like, I don't get calls anymore because the answers are all out there, right?
Yeah.
So on the marketing side, again, because you're a different level, right? I said you're a black belt, you work on the corporate side and you do work with some very high profile people. How do you help them craft their message? I think that would be super valuable for people.
Well, the first thing we do is we look at like they're not new, right? So what was your message? What is working? What wasn't working? Why do you want to change your message if you do, or are we continuing on a different brand? Like it could be, for instance, it could be a builder opening up a new subdivision, or it could be a whole other brand within the brand, if that makes any sense. But
That's, yeah.
we always, again, I go back to the root of who are they, what are they all about, and what's the message that they want to impart to their audience. Like with anyone, I always look at like, how do you want to be remembered in person and in your marketing? Like what's that legacy piece of like, how do people remember you and your brand, and how do then we impact everything around what you do? So for example, at the restaurant that I was speaking about, when an influencer said, "Hey, I'm in town. Would you work with influencers?" To me, that does not reflect well on the brand of that restaurant, because it is so popular and it is so well known that, not that it doesn't need it, but that is not its authentic story and its authentic self. When people go in, they take pictures, they post them, they tag them, and then I will reciprocate and put that reciprocity out to say thank you, which then they see, which then grows that audience. It's that I'd rather take it a decade to build it, like you had said, versus
Yeah.
have 1 million fans and followers overnight, because that's not authentic to my brand or that particular brand. So it's really, it's a challenge, because it does take time and people want results immediately. But in the long run, what's that going to do for your brand and your business in the long run? Right? Like, so we have to look at too, like, where do you want to be in 5 years? What's your, do we have to talk about a succession plan? Like what's the bigger picture? It's not just, hey, let's put this out there and market it. We've got to look at everything and analyze that. And then we go a bit deeper. Does that make sense?
Yeah, tons of sense. I mean, a lot of digital agencies, they pump out these massive KPIs because the people that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars want to feel good about, oh, look, we generated 1,000 leads off Facebook. None of them converted. Meanwhile, like I'd rather have 100 leads that were a little bit more difficult to get, because those are probably going to convert at a much higher level because you put a couple
Exactly.
hoops for them to jump through, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it really is about, again, it's looking at, as you said, look at your results online. And it's not so much, oh, I had 1 million followers or like 10,000 likes. Where are you getting them and what is it doing? And how, again, what's the why, what's the purpose? And we have to know, like, sometimes you're putting out content and you're part of maybe an association or something larger, so you're building the association's awareness, you're building your brand's awareness, you're building the fact that when we go out and we interview people, for instance, I love that, because it's not, think of it like breakfast television kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when I interview someone, I love it because it's not them saying how great they are, it's me saying how great they are and pulling that content out of them. And it's like you and I having a conversation right now. So it takes the pressure off. It makes them very relatable. It's it's doing things a little bit
earned
different.
media, right? Like
Yes,
this podcast is an example of that, where like I give you my platform because I've known you for a long time. I see how you treat people. You show up and you're real, again, versus some stuff I've seen in my space where I know people just paid to get on stages. People in the audience have no idea. And it's just, I think that authentic and that earned media space is so different. I'm going to connect you actually with a previous guest that I had, Barbara Majeski. She's on morning TV in New York. Amazing. Good Morning America. And I think you and her would get along really, really well. She's very much like you in the media space and authentic. And I think that's something else that comes. The last question that I have before the rapid fire questions is exactly around that. So I'm going to connect you with Barbara. You guys are going to hit it off, I'm sure. Connect in the media space how you do. You're on this podcast and like clients may be watching this, be like, Justin, why are you doing a podcast? Go sell my house. I'm like, this is selling your house. She's got tons of contacts. She knows builders, people in agriculture. We do a lot of new development, a lot of agriculture, the collaboration piece. In your experience in media, how much has that mattered to your growth?
Everything. It's people. You're in the people business. And I'll tell you an example, like yesterday or the day before. So I was on one Zoom call with a meeting with a client, then hopped to the other one. And I went, oh my gosh, they needed a speaker for a conference. And this client was perfect. And we were talking about growing their business and we were talking about how they wanted to expand to different markets. And I kind of just went, oh my gosh, this was meant to be. And you're the connector. And I think that's how I've authentically grown my business, and how you've got to pass that baton, so to speak, to and help others help each other as well, right? So I kind of look at myself as a facilitator or a connector of the dots, or connecting the dots, and it's huge, hands down, because and that's where your reputation speaks volumes, right? And how I won't write a review. I won't represent a product if I don't believe in it, because it's going to come back on you and say like, oh my gosh, you gave me this person. You told me they were great. Hmm. Oh yeah, they paid me to say that. Like, right. Like
Yeah.
I would never, ever, ever do that, because it will come back on you. So it's like I said, I'm very careful about who I recommend, who I spend my time with, and likewise. And then when someone puts their trust in me, I always wanted to over deliver. I want to give like 110%, because that's the other thing too. I'm really noticing in business is a lot of my clients right now are struggling in the sense that it's not with the marketing they're struggling. It's the fact that they've got business. They don't have the people to execute some of the business, because people, whether they're burnt out or whether they're like, I've had enough. That's it. I've had enough. And I think like, the grass isn't greener. Like, why haven't you had enough? And what's the need? And what's not fulfilling what's the void there? Because at the end of the day, you jumping ship to another ship is not always the answer. It's interesting to see just what's happening right now, but I'm seeing that more and more. And I love it when when clients of mine then start working together.
Yeah.
It's great. And what does that do for you? Then they talk about you and say, oh, that was, and then that builds business, because then they say, well, who did that for you? Who sold that house for you? Right? Well, he did, just and then that's that word of mouth. And to me, that's the best marketing you can put out there. The other thing too, if I can make one other point here, is when you have a sales team, and here's an example, you may have an agency, you may have a company, and your people execute the product or whatever it is you're selling or you offer, but they're maybe not great at sales. One of the things that I would highly recommend is to have a piece, a marketing, a sizzle reel, a promo piece, have it out there, your message. What do you do? What do you stand for? What's it all about? And then give that to all of your sales teams so that they all have the same messaging. They're all selling your company or your brand in a similar voice. Because what happens sometimes too is, like, if you're a kid, you played that telephone game as a kid and you passed on the message, you gave the message, you gave the message. At the very end, it got misconstrued. Everybody's saying something a little bit different about your company or your brand. If they can go online, see you or the team or what you represent, and they've got something there, one, it builds their confidence. Two, they've got something to sell with. And three, everybody's pitching the same way, which for a larger corporation or big team is really, really important.
Trusted, creative, and driven. Those are the three words that all of my team have to know like the back of their hand, because then they can align all of their choices against those three. And if they don't know them, then that's my failure for not actually putting it in front of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was so clutch.
Yeah, I think you've got just to make sure everyone's on the same page and representing the team and the brand the same way too. Same as, like, if you've got a team of people, I always joke when like, I think having a deckled vehicle is a great way for a sales piece. Just,
I know your car. I've seen it.
Everybody sees it
all over the place. Yeah.
So people will see it and they'll be like, I saw you there. I saw you there. That's great. That's great. You saw me there. But also my team also wants to decal their vehicles, right? So I'm always like, but that's a representation. Or if you have a work truck, that is a responsibility that I take very seriously with my team. And I have conversations and say, like, when you're out there doing this, I know you're doing your own personal thing, but you're still in that car representing, and my phone number is still on there. So it comes with a lot of trust that you are representing always the way that we want to be represented. And my team does hands down. Like, I adore everybody on our team. Like, wouldn't be here without them.
Have you ever had to deal with complaints about driving or people rushing to appointments?
It was me. Somebody
called me too. That happened once with me.
Yeah. Somebody called me, and you know what it was? And it was a wake-up call for me. It really was. It was the fact that when I was working at CTV, I had very late nights, and then I would go to Kitchener to work at Conestoga College, and it wouldn't be getting there, it was coming home, and I get that kind of sleepy eye. And I think I kind of did a little waver, and somebody called and said, are you, like, what's going on? And it was a wake-up call to say, like, you know what, you need to figure things out. You can't be everything to everybody, and you should. That's a big important thing too. And it was a life lesson to say, thankfully I never ever hurt someone there, but it was a wake-up call to say, do what you do well and don't be everything for everybody, because then you're not mediocre. You're trying the best you can, but you're not giving it your all. And when I stopped teaching, actually, and focused on the business 110%, the business grew. Surprise, surprise, right? So it's where you put your efforts and where you put your time, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that
Yeah.
so much. And it's a growth opportunity, a learning opportunity. I think that that's such a key point for people. So rapid fire, and I know
Okay.
you got lots to do, so I'm going to get you out of here.
Okay.
Number
Okay.
one rapid fire question: how has failure shaped your life?
Oh my, rapid fire. Where do I start? You know what? You make mistakes, learn to make mistakes. People are afraid to make mistakes right now, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. Grow from your mistakes.
You can tell she's a professional because she's like really quick and to the point. A lot of people do the rapid fire, and I don't care. You can answer 5 minutes long if you want, but
Yeah,
I
okay.
love that. That's awesome.
No. I'm
Second
trying
question.
to make this like TV stuff, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're on point. I like that. So Barbara, same thing. So I still run a clubhouse room with Barbara. There every Saturday morning. She crushes. She starts on time. She ends on time. That's why I think you two will get along very well. Second question: what are you learning right now that maybe is new to you, but you're excited about?
Equipment. The guys on my team always bring in new gear, new equipment, new ideas. It's costly because they don't do anything inexpensive, but I love the gear and how things are changing. And like right when you think you've got what you need, you always need something else. But
Drones and
that's
gimbals and lighting. It's
toys. They're
wild.
toys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're toys. So, but that being said, as a professional team, I know this is rapid fire, but as an aside,
Yeah, go nuts.
it qualifies us in a different field in the sense that people can come in and say, hey, if we quote this price, well, why are you this price? And why, somebody could take their cell phone and go shoot you a video, and that's great. If that's what you want, that's what you'll get. But you do get what you pay for. And I think that's fundamentally, that's an issue in my industry, is that people go in like, why can't I get a $200 video? Well, you can. It's just, I can offer you all of this, or I can offer you this. You need to choose what you want.
Amazing. I think that's a great answer. The next question that I have for you is one that I ask because, again, selfishly, looking for guests, looking for people to follow. Who's somebody that inspires you? Could be an author, podcaster, anybody on video. Who's somebody that just jumps off the page for you?
It was somebody I really so a fellow named Larry Clay. He's in British Columbia. Larry was the CHBA president, so the Canadian Home Builders Association president. Yeah. And Larry has embodied video he's just delightful. And Larry was a former school teacher and was building homes on the side. Like how you do that, I don't know. But he'll tell you his struggle, his story, his everything. He came to one of our meetings in Stratford. And so I got to chat with him one-on-one, and he's just so authentic, so real. And then he's somebody I regularly enjoy tuning into online because he'll show you like up close and personal things that are happening on the house. And I'm in Edmonton. I think he's in Edmonton right now. I'm in Edmonton. Awesome. I want to show you what I'm working on, or this project with this. And it's not all about himself. He'll talk about other people, but just the sheer passion and joy and knowledge. It's the expertise. And he took that and did what he loves to do, but he imparts it to everyone else, like former president of CHBA, president of his local association too. So Larry Clay would be my answer today.
I appreciate that. I'm going to connect with him and reach out to him as well too, and start following his stuff. Yeah. So since you made time for us, and I do value that very, very much, my platform is yours. What message would you like to leave for the Prime Nation?
Oh, message. You know what? It's to be your authentic self. And my philosophy is always, and my motto has always been to inspire you to be the best that you can be. And to me, that represents both online and in person. So who we are right now is who I should get when I meet you. The trick to video to me is that it accelerates the sales process. Okay. So when I go online, people think about, have you ever heard of ZMOT? Like the 0 moment of truth?
Oh, no, it's the first time I heard the concept.
Okay. So this is a study by Google, ZMOT, 0 moment of truth. So back in the day, it used to be your first moment of truth would be, I met you in person. We had an experience, like you took me on a house tour or what have you. And then I went and then I told people about it. It was great. It was fabulous. It was this, it was that, kind of like going on a first date or something like that. First moment of truth. The second moment of truth would be, then you'd go talk about it, tell your friends and that sort of thing. The 0 moment of truth is the research we do online. That's the beauty of this, is that you are giving people the accelerated opportunity to meet you, get a feel for you, put that trust in you. Like, I feel like I know her. I feel like I know him. So then they meet you in person. And I'm telling you right now, they meet you in person. You're like, oh, you're that guy, that girl, that whatever. It's kind of like meeting, like seeing someone in a Hollywood movie. You see them in person and you're like, whoa, you maybe starstruck, maybe not, but there's a trust that's already there. So when you go to do that, like you're talking about a product, you're going to sell a house, you're going to sell, I'm telling you, the sale was already done online.
100%.
You are just closing the deal, so to speak, because you should be your authentic self of who you are right now. And the reason I say that is because I've worked with enough people in broadcasting that when I'm in the studio, who they are on camera is not who they are in person.
100%.
And it's just awful. It's I don't understand that. So it's probably why I don't know, I'm a little bit different, that I loved what I did there, but I love this more because
I'm countercultural to my industry as well too. Like the second I'm in a room with somebody and they talk differently about the consumer than they talk to the consumer, I'm out. I'm like, I can't. It's like somebody disrespecting a server at a restaurant when we go to eat with them. Once you lose that trust, it's really, really tough to get back. So I think everybody, please be authentic. Do me a favor, because Melissa was so much her authentic self. Go to her platforms and reach out, connect with her, and definitely give her a follow. I know we'll be connecting off channel as well too. I will send you a book. I have a gift for you for joining the Prime People podcast. You will be invited to the Prime Invitationals when we host them, where we bring all the Prime People guests together, hopefully get you in person. But I definitely appreciate you making the time, Melissa. And thanks again for joining the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hear you and to spend time with you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be following your journey, and I'm sure we're going to collaborate in person as well.
Right back at you. Thanks.
Okay. See you, Melissa. Bye.
Bye. Bye.